Hey everyone, in today's video, I want to talk about how Django Sessions work. So sessions are something that you can use to keep track of information that isn't quite worthy of being saved in the database under a typical schema. So like it has an associated user ID and everything like that, but it is important enough to save sometimes. So if it's data that can be saved in the browser, you can use something called a session. And not so much that it's saved in the browser, but the idea of a session is that it's saved in the browser and then the information associated with that session can be stored in other places. By default in Django, it's stored in the database, but you could store it in the browser if you wanted to, the actual information. So what I mean by this, let's open up my developer tools and go over to storage. And then here I have this cookie session ID. So this session ID is used by Django to get the actual information in my session. And then for this example video here, the way I'm using the session is to create a list of recently viewed products. So this store that I have here just has like a product here. And then I have these recently viewed. So I have like these images here. And if I click on another product, we see the thing that I just viewed. So whatever this chain thing is here. And then if I look here, I have this SSD card or this SSD. And if I go to this monitor, I see the SSD is now the first thing. And then the monitor should be the first thing here, followed by the SSD, followed by the chain or whatever that is. So that's what I'm going to show you how to build in this video using Django Sessions. And hopefully after watching this video, you should know enough to work with sessions in your own apps because I think they're pretty straightforward. And if you like this video, make sure you check out my Understanding Django course because I talk a lot more about Django and all the different things that you can do in it. So if you're interested in that course, I have a link in the description below, or you can just go to my site prettyprinted.com and you'll see the link to the course. So now let's get started with the code. To get started, I've already created a Django project and I've already created an app for the project. So here, if we go to the settings.py, we can see I have the store app that I've created. And also, if you don't start with a typical Django admin start project, then you'll need to make sure that you have sessions in both your installed apps and your middleware here to use sessions. I also have some URLs set up. I have 3 URLs that I'm concerned with. One is going to be the main page for the store that lists all the products. One is going to be to view one particular product. And then the last one's going to be one to load the products into the database. This will work better as a command, but I think it's fine if I just put it here as a view with the URL attached to it. I have the 3 views here. I haven't added anything to them yet. I'm importing requests because I'm going to use that to get the products for the store. I've created a product already, a product model already. So the products just have a title, price, description, and the image URL in them. And that's what I'm going to use to show the products and the description and everything on the main screen. And then I have 2 templates here that are empty for now, but of course I'll fill them in later. So the first thing I want to do is I want to load some products into the database. And to do that, I'll be using something called the Fake Store API. So I can perform a request to that API to load products into the database. So here in the load products, what I'll do is I'll say R for response. It's going to be equal to requests.get. And the URL for the Fake Store API is https:// and then we have fakestoreapi.com, and then the endpoint for the products, just products there. So the reason why I'm using the Fake Store API is because I don't want to spend time looking for images and coming up with descriptions and titles for products when the point of this exercise is the sessions. So I'm just using this API to generate some products for me. So once I get that back, what I can do is I can print r.json just to inspect what it looks like. And we see it just returns the index, which is nothing. So this URL is /load. So I'll go over to /load. And if it returns, so it's just taking a moment because it is calling the API and it's a little slow, probably because it's free. And we see here I have all the information that I want. So it's just a bunch of product information as a title, image URL, and other things, but I'm only concerned with the things that I have in the model here. So next, what I want to do is I want to save this information to the database. So let me go ahead and import this. So I'll say from.models import products, and then I'll be able to loop over this JSON data. So I'll say for item in r.json. And what I'll do is I'll add everything to the database. So I'll just say product equals product. And it's going to have a few things in this product. It's going to have the title, which is going to be item title. And then we have the description. is going to be item description. We have the price, which is going to be item price. And then finally, we have the image. So I think I have image URL in the model, but for the API, it should be just image. Just looking down here, let's see. Yeah, just image. And then after that, I can do product.save. And then that should work. So let's try this out. It's loading, it finished, no errors. So that should be working. So let me just go to the main page and I'll loop over these and just return them to the template. So I can say something like products equals product.objects.all, and I'll create a context, products here, and I'll pass that context to the template. And then inside of the template here, I can close my models.py. Inside the template here, let's add it in the body. So we can say for product in products. I want to, for now, just show the title. So let's say product.title. And then there should be the double curly brackets around it. And let's try this. Okay, so now we see I have a bunch of product names. This means that everything was loaded into the database properly. So now I just want to build my homepage for this. I have the product information that I want, so I'll just put some stuff around it to make it look a little better like you saw before. So what I'll do is I'll put everything inside of a container. And let me put the div on this side. And indent this. For the product title, I want this to be smaller. This should be an H3. And I want the image to go above it. So we'll have image, and then I'm going to have a class called image that I'll create in a second. The source is going to be the image URL from the database. So product.image_URL. And then let me just close this out. I can put something up here like a H1 for products. And then I just want this centered on the page. So what I can do is I can just put the style stuff in the head here. So I'll just name this store, and I'll have a style tag. And then I have the container. This should be display flex, and then flex flow. So I want this to be columns. So everything will be in one column that's centered. I don't think I need wrap. And then align items will be center. Right? So this should be direction since I'm only using column. I could use column wrap, but everything's going to be centered. And then the image that I am going to display is just going to have a width and a height. So width, I'll say 100 pixels, and the height will be 100 pixels as well. So I think that's it. Let's go ahead and refresh this. Okay, so yeah, that's how I want it to look. And then I'll just make all of the headers here for the product name a link. So if I go down here, I'll make this a link. So href, and then put the closing tag on this side. This is going to be a URL. So URL, and then the name of the URL is going to be products, which I need to name. Let me just open up the urls.py, and I'll put the name on my product here. So name equals product. And then back in the template, I need to pass the product ID. So it should just be product.id. And then that should be it for the link. So let's make sure this works. Yeah, so I can click on the links. I get an error here because I don't have the product ID in the function, but just looking at the URLs, I do have the ID there. So if I add the product ID here, so product_ID, and then I click it, then I get the page. So now let me do the same thing for the product page. Let me just build the HTML for this. So for this, I'll just call it product. I'm not really concerned with having the actual title there, although that could help. So product.title, and I'm going to pass the product to the template, which I'll do after I just do the basic HTML for this. So I'm going to have a container for this again, and I'll have the product title in a h1 tag. So product title. And then after this, what I'll do is I'll have the image for the product. So image source is going to be product.image_URL. And I think I can give this a class. So I'll give this the class of main image because I'll have other images for the related products. And then I'll have the product description. So product.description. And then what I want under that is I want the recently viewed products. So recently viewed. And for styling right now, I'll just add some placeholders, but later, of course, this is going to be dynamic based on what the user has actually recently viewed. So this is going to be a container called related. And then I'm going to have 5 images with the class image. So image dot, let's say related image times 5. And for these, I'll put the source as being the same. So I'll just use the product URL here. And then this, of course, will change depending on the related image. But just for now, I just want to get this set up. So now if I go to views again, what I want to do is I want to get the specific product. So product.objects.get pk equals product ID to get the product ID from the product of the product ID from the URL. And then context is going to be products. And then I can pass the context as the third argument here. And then I can test this out. So I can click one. I see the image for the main product, and I see 5 images for the related. I can click on another one. Same thing with these gold rings. So now I just want to add some styling to this. So let me go back to the templates, and I'll do the same thing. I'll just put the style in the head here since it's not that much. So I have the container, and it's going to be, this is not spelled correctly. So container, and this is going to be display flex again. And then the flex direction is going to be column. It's going to be just like the one before, and then align items center. Then what I want to do is I want to have one for the main image. So main image, and then the width and the height can be bigger. So width is going to be 400 pixels, and the height will also be 400 pixels. And then finally, I have the related image, right? Yeah, related image. And then I want this to be 100 by 100. So 100 pixels. 100 pixels here. So now let's take a look. Okay, so this looks a little bit better. Once again, it's using the same image. That's not what I want, obviously, but this is just to make sure it's in the right spot. So now that I have everything here working, I want to work on the actual session stuff and adding things to the session and reading things from the session. So basically, to describe how it's going to work, the idea is every time I go to a particular page, I want to add the product ID to the session, meaning that the user has viewed this product. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to keep a list of 5 products in the session that represent the 5 items that the user has recently viewed. And if they've recently viewed more than 5, then every time you view a new product, it kind of kicks the oldest one off, and it just displays like the 5 most recently viewed. So to deal with session, the first thing you have to know is it comes from the requests here. And when you're working with it, you can use it like a dictionary. So request.session is the dictionary. It's not technically a dictionary, but you can treat it like one. So if you want to access something called data inside the session, you can. So this will get you data, and then having the equal sign here and just putting something on the right-hand side will allow you to modify that data. So in my case, I want to have something in my dictionary called recently viewed, and that's what I'll be looking for. So of course, because it's not going to be there by default. I need to check to make sure it's there so my code works if it isn't there. So what I can do is I can say if recently viewed in request.session, then I can do something. And if it's not there, then I can do something else. So what I want to do is in the case where recently viewed is not in the session, so this if statement fails, what I want to do is I want to create a list. So request session. I want to create a list in this recently viewed. So it's going to be a list, but because I'm on a page, I can say the most recently viewed item is the current item. So I can just pass the product ID here. So I have a list with just one item in it in the case where I don't have recently viewed in the session, meaning this is the very first time that I've gone to the store and I'm adding the current product that's being viewed to the recently viewed list here. If the recently viewed is in the session already, that means there's already at least one product in there. What I want to do is I want to start manipulating this list to have the things that I want in basically the order that I want. So to do this, the first thing I need to do is I want to check to see if the current product is in the list. Because if it's in the list, basically what I want to do is I want to take it out the list and then reinsert it at the beginning. So what I can do here is at the beginning of this, I can say if product ID in recently viewed, I just want to remove it. So I can do request.session and then recently viewed. So this is just my list. And then I can call remove on the list product ID. So this will take the product ID out of the list. And I'm going to re-add it to the list later. So I can do that here, but I'm going to do something in between, but I can just re-add it here. So request.session recently viewed again. I want to insert it into the list, and I want to keep this list in order. So the first item in the list is the most recently viewed, whereas the last item in the list is the oldest of the most recently viewed. So I can insert here instead of appending because I want to add it to the beginning. So I want to add to the beginning. I use index 0 for the beginning and then the product ID. So this is going to take whatever list I have here for recently viewed and add the product ID for the current product that I'm on. And it's going to put it at the beginning of the list. And then another thing I want to do is if the list has gone over 5 items, I want to remove the last item because I'm only concerned with the 5 most recent products that were viewed. So I can do this. I can say if the length of the session, so let me just copy this because it's exactly the same. So length of the recently viewed in the session is greater than 5. I want to pop it off. So request.session, well, I just copied this on my keyboard. Request.session.pop. So this will remove the very last item in the session. And there's also one other thing that I want to do here. So when you're manipulating the session, like when you save things to the session, if you're dealing with basic data types like numbers or strings, you don't have to do anything more than this. But when you're dealing with things that are dealt with by reference like lists or dictionaries, you have to tell Django that you want to save the session because it doesn't know what you're doing inside of the list because it only holds a reference to the list itself. It doesn't know about what's going on inside the list. So if you're modifying the things inside of the list, you have to tell Django that you want to save not only the reference to the list, but everything inside of the list itself. So to do that, you can do request.session.modified equals true. So this is basically telling Django to update the session every single time this runs. And the reason is because I'm manipulating a list in the session, which Django doesn't know by default. So I have to tell it to update everything inside the session, even if you don't think something has been updated, because I know that something has been updated. So this should add everything into the session. So let me just run this to make sure it works. So I can run that page. I can go here and look at this jacket and maybe this shirt. So I'm just adding things to the session. So just keep this in mind, the things that I'm clicking on. I have this ring here. Where's the hard drive? So I've clicked on a few things. So at this point, my session list should be 5 items because I've clicked more than 5 items. But of course, I can't see those in the related products because I just have placeholders here. So what I want to do is I want to query for the recently viewed, and I want to pass it to the template. So what I'm going to do is in between removing the product ID and adding the product ID again, if it's already there, and just looking at this, actually this should be like this. So I put this in the wrong indentation. So it removes the product ID if it's already in there, and then there is no else statement for this, and then it adds the product ID here. So let me just go back and click on some things again, just to add them to the session because they weren't being added before. And let's try one more thing, the monitor here. Okay. So now everything should be in the session. So what I want to do here is in between removing the product ID and adding the product ID, I want to query for the products in the session. And the reason why I'm doing it in between here is because I don't want to show the current product in the recently viewed because that doesn't make any sense. So I'm going to query for the recently viewed products. I can just call this recently viewed as a name. Recently viewed products as a name. And what I'll do is I'll do objects.filter. And what I can do is I can do an inquiry. So pk dunder in, and then request session recently viewed. And then I can pass these recently viewed products to the context. So what I can do here is I can initialize this as being none just in case it's none. And here I can add it to the context. And then inside of the template here, I can add a loop. So for product, let's say recent product in recently viewed products. And then let me just add the in for down here. I only need one because it's going to loop over and generate each image tag. And then I can save it and this should work. So let's run it. So now I see the 4 items here. If I click on something else, I see 4 again. So remember the black leather jacket when I go to click on something else. Now I have 5. So we kind of see the items, but they're not in order. And the reason is because the query isn't returning anything in order. And I see I have an issue when I go to something that has already been clicked. So I can deal with that in a second. But for the recently viewed, what I want to do is I want to order this by the order that my list is. So that is pretty simple to do. So here, what I'll do is I'll create another variable called recently viewed products. And for this one, I'll change it to just products because this is going to be a different list. So I'm going to use sorted so I can sort products. So sorted products. And what I want to do is I want to sort by the index in this list here. So to do that, I can say, I'll just put this on a separate line. So key. So the key for the sorting is going to be an anonymous function. So lambda x is my one argument. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to say request.session recently viewed .index of x. So what it's going to do is it's going to pass in the product because I'm sorting over products here. So product gets passed as x. So I can do x.id to give me the product ID. And then I have the closing thing here. And then recently viewed should be the same. So now if I do this, I have the red shirt here, and then I have the hard drive. So the hard drive should be the latest one, and it is. And then followed by the red shirt and the rings. So now let's just focus on these two. So the hard drive and the red shirt, and then we have the blue. So the blue shirt, hard drive, red shirt. And then let's go here. Blue shirt, hard drive, red shirt. So now we see that everything is in order. And then the last issue is if I go to the same page, it's kicking out the last item. So let me just fix that. The problem here is I'm doing the pop. So this should happen somewhere else. So right here, and I see that really the issue is I'm removing the product ID first, and then I get the product. So in the case where the product ID is already there, this list goes from 5 to 4. So I end up with 4 products here. So one option is to make the list 6 and then add a filter inside of the query here to ignore the current product. So I can query for the 5 that aren't the current products, and I can limit this by 5. But just thinking about all that, I think this makes it more complicated. So what I'll do is I'll just leave it as it is. And in some cases, it's going to be 4 products, and in other cases, it's going to be 5. So I think that's fine. So that's it for what I wanted to do in this example. If you have any questions about this, of course, feel free to leave a comment down below. If you like this video, please give me a thumbs up. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel already, please subscribe. So thank you for watching, and I will talk to you next time.